Welcome to the very last WWE 2K18 part. It's the second live stream battle that I did with Jova. So let's see how well this goes.
Also, I'm here.
Yes, Tio is here for the grand finale.
Well, Teo, in just a few moments, you're about to see a wrestler that you're actually familiar with. So hold on.
Yeah. I reckon at least all. I think all of you.
Who the hell is this guy?
In at least one point, they're gonna be like, "Who are all you people?"
Yeah, it's like Patrick.
Yeah.
So, Dwibs, is this trumpet thing a gimmick for him?
Yes.
He plays the trumpet.
Does he get to shove it on the opponent's head sometimes?
Occasionally.
Occasionally, yes. Anything that's basically anything that's an object is ripe for use as a weapon.
Even a tuba.
Yes.
Well, the instrument.
Trust me, Jova. WWE over the course of this have used pretty much everything in the kitchen sink as weapons.
Really?
I can imagine that.
Yeah. Okay, that's Xavier Woods, a member of a popular WWE stable called the New Day.
Can you dig it, sucker?
Which also includes Kofi Kingston and Big E.
Oh, it's Booker T.
Yep.
Yeah.
Basically, for the audience, my experience with WWE is extremely limited. I may have seen like 3 or 4 matches. One of them was Booker T versus The Undertaker.
Nice.
I don't even remember how it ended.
The Undertaker won, probably.
Most likely.
Maybe Booker T won. It depends. Was Booker T a face or a heel at the time?
It depends, Jova. Like,
Booker T is mostly known for being a heel.
Well,
really?
Well, yeah. He did have that period in early 2005 where he was a face on SmackDown for quite a while. But then when we got to around like mid 2005, he got tired of never winning any titles. So both him and Charlotte started,
Charmel, you mean?
That's it, Charmel. Sorry. Started cheating and everything, and they even stole Chris Benoit's U.S. title. And later
he became King of the Ring.
Yeah, he became King of the Ring, and he also stole the World Heavyweight Championship. So basically, it depends. Like, so pretty much, I can't even think of a wrestler who has always been a face or always been a heel. Like, there's faces.
Yeah, I mean, hell, even John Cena was a heel at one point.
Really, John Cena?
How does that even work? Like,
it was his early career.
His early career
must
too.
Have been. I mean, John Cena these days seems to be like the Boy Scout Superman of the bunch.
And don't get me wrong, you can have a character like that, but
while Jova technically was, he's not really there anymore.
Yeah.
Now he's more doing voice acting than anything. He's like The Rock.
Oh, and acting in
Isn't
screen
The Rock
acting as
still
well.
occasionally doing wrestling?
Fenders are correct.
Yeah, but he hasn't done it in a while.
Right now, the primary big thing, from what I understand, Jova, is that Edge recently surprised everybody by returning to WWE on the Royal Rumble. Edge, basically, Jova, Edge is one of the all-time great heels. Tell him, Dwibs.
Yeah, well, Edge started in 1998 as a brooding loner.
Yes, Shiroi, a brooding loner called Edge.
Well, it was 1998. That kind of thing was all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh, so it was before people popularized the term of edgy.
Yeah. But he would later go on to form a successful tag team with his kayfabe brother Christian, and won a lot of tag titles. However, he was successful in around mid card for a while, but it wasn't until early 2006 where he had especially considering that only 2 years prior he recovered from what would prove to be a career-ending neck injury. That he won his first world title. I mean, he recovered from it, but he was on borrowed time after that.
Of all the
won the WWE title from John Cena, and he would go on to win many world titles. Using his various heelish schemes, such as breaking into John Cena's house and slapping his dad. Making disparaging jokes about people. I mean, there was even this one skit that I watched recently where Edge refused to perform in front of a state that only just recently acknowledged Martin Luther King Day and called the fans bigots.
Basically, Edge.
Is that all part of the script?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry, Jova. Like, pretty much.
I mean, that's what makes a great heel. He speaks the truth, but he's an arsehole about it.
It's no, Jova. Like it. Like, trust me, Jova. Like, it's always best to assume that it's part of the script because WWE has done plenty of stuff that they can be very theatrical about things.
Unfortunately, in 2011, because of his his prior neck injuries and that catching up to him, he had a lot of tests, which unfortunately meant that he had to retire. Which is great because at least that way he wouldn't have to spend.
Heavy Nash.
He wouldn't suffer another injury, which would either kill him or put him in a wheelchair. But however, like Daniel Bryan a couple of years back, he must have had a lot more tests since then because he was recently once again cleared to compete and appeared in the recent, by recent I mean 2020's Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
God, how long was he gone?
9 years.
Yeah.
Wow, this
So-
guy is
and
such a lame intro. He just slowly walks.
the WWE did a great job in keeping it hidden. So when he showed up, like out of nowhere, everybody cheered.
And now apparently I don't know what's going to happen. He's apparently in a feud with Randy Orton.
Yeah. Yes.
Who they used to be a short-lived but somewhat fondly remembered tag team called Rated RKO, and Orton decided he wanted to. Basically, Orton's heel character is he's a complete psycho who loves inflicting pain and misery on others. So he attacked Edge and did that concerto move on him, which basically means going to your opponent, putting his head on a chair, and whacking him hard on the head with another chair.
Wow, I gotta say, so they actually had a heel go against a heel.
Edge is a face. Edge is a face now.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a face now. So, I wonder, have they ever had a heel go against another heel?
They have. It depends.
It's rare because it is rather difficult to have a feud where a bad guy faces another bad guy, and you're like, who the hell am I supposed to root for here?
Go for the bad guy who has a sense of honor, I guess.
Enjoy the carnage.
Or in wrestling terms, or as most is often the case in wrestling, go for the heel who is cooler because there are such things as cool heels.
Oh
where,
yeah, I hear Hulk Hogan
act-
was loved as a heel.
Yeah, in the late 90s, and recent example being in NXT called and that's another WWE thing called the Undisputed Era. They're the ones who go around acting like they're the hottest thing on the planet, and they can back it up with pure ability. They do cheat as well, but everyone loves their antics. So even though they're the bad guys, so yeah.
Now it boils down to this, Jova. Edge is exactly the kind of methodical heel that does everything it takes full advantage of the rules. Like, for example, back in 2005. In WrestleMania, he won the first ever Money in the Bank briefcase. What is that? Basically, has a contract, Jova, where you're allowed to demand a match for the World Heavyweight title at any point, any time. Meaning, you just need to go up to the manager and say, "Okay, I'm cashing in my contract. I want a world title match right now."
Or actually, Pedro, mainly. When they see an opponent, when they see the champion knocked out or whatever, they just run into the ring, give
that's what I was going to say.
The ref, and that's how they do the match right there and then.
Usually, yeah, but Edge was the first one to use it, and it was interesting, Joe, because he waited. He didn't use it immediately, like you'd think. No, instead he decided to, hold his ground and wait. And then in January 2006, there was a pay-per-view called New Year's Revolution where we had an elimination chamber. What is the elimination chamber? Basically, Jova, it's basically this gigantic steel cage of sorts where there's six wrestlers in there and they're fighting it out for the world title basically, and there's so obviously it's a very it's exactly the kind of match that shortens careers because it takes a lot out of you. And so basically, Jova, after John Cena managed to withstand 5 superstars inside a steel cage elimination chamber, just to keep his title. And he's bloody by the time he's over. Suddenly, Edge shows up, and he cashes in his contract, and he's able to defeat John Cena easily.
Wow, he waited till just the right moment.
And you know what's the most amazing thing?
What?
That's why I love Edge. It's such a cool deal.
He did it again the following year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Although there are a few differences. Basically, Edge didn't win the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania in 2007. A guy named Mr. Kennedy did.
Well, Jova,
Mr. Kennedy is a guy whose main shtick is that he announces his own matches. And
interesting.
That sounds awkward.
Oh no, it wasn't. He was actually pretty charismatic about it.
He announces himself. He does his own ring announcements. Unfortunately, he's also apparently, at least from what I can tell, he's apparently gotten a bit of a backdraft in recent years for apparently not being all that good of a wrestler in hindsight. But anyway,
that actually makes me wonder.
He won the money. Anyway. He won the Money in the Bank ladder match. However, he got some sort of injury. I'm not sure. So to write him out of that, they had Mr. Kennedy get provoked by Edge into putting his Money in the Bank contract on the line. But as he was coming out, Edge attacked him from behind and brutalized him, and even to the point where they finally both got in the ring. The ref was saying to him, Mr. Kennedy, if you don't want to do the match, that's fine. No hard feelings. But Mr. Kennedy was so stubborn. Bear in mind, Mr. Kennedy was also a heel as well as Edge. He was so stubborn. He was like, "Ring the damn bell!" And
is that where the RKO lower meme comes from?
Actually, no. So basically, what you'd expect happened. Match started. Edge speared him 1, 2, 3. Edge won the Money in the Bank contract, and then that very same week, after the Undertaker was both in a brutal steel cage match with Batista. Bear in mind, Undertaker was the World Heavyweight Champion at the time on SmackDown, and got assaulted by Mark Henry. Edge went out and won the world title from the Undertaker.
Mm-hmm. But to answer, it goes down to this, Jova. Like again, to quote, how about this, Jova? It's like the rare hunter from Yu-Gi-Oh says: the hunter only attacks the prey when at the opportune moment. So
makes sense. That actually makes me wonder. That actually makes me wonder. Has there ever been a wrestler who's famous for commentating the match while he's in it?
I don't know how that would work.
I don't think that would work because
he would have to have a microphone with him.
He's commentating on what's going on while he's in the wrestling match.
I mean, there have been some people who do a promo during a match.
Yeah, but you can't do it all the time because you would have to have a natural microphone on you with you, and they wouldn't really. It would be uncomfortable to try to wrestle while you have a microphone on your face. Go ahead.
To elaborate on what I said earlier, one of my favorite Edge moments was when he broke into John Cena's house.
Yeah.
Apparently, the story behind the making of that segment was just as funny. What happened was they filmed the segment, but while Vince was watching it after they recorded it, he was horrified at it because apparently John Cena's dad did. That was his real dad, by the way. Mm-hmm. His dialogue apparently was so awful that Vince was like, "Okay, Edge, this John Cena's dad dialogue is just terrible. Can you just talk over the whole thing and improvise?" That's how those funny Edge comments happened while Edge was showing the video of the John Cena house visit. Because he was improvising everything because of the awful dialogue in the video itself.
To answer your question, Theo, the whole RKO came out of nowhere thing. That's because the RKO is a finisher by Randy Orton, and the thing about the RKO is that it's a move that requires no preparation whatsoever. Basically, it's this thing to where Randy Orton is facing his opponent, like frontal. Like all he has to do is jump and mid jump grab the head of his opponent and push the head down into the floor and smash his face on them. So you can so Randy can basically pull that move like out of nowhere because all it takes is a quick jump right in front of the so it's not like something like with a tombstone where you have to grab the opponent and then lift him and then drop him. No, you can literally do it very quickly. So that's where the meme came from.
All right.
Fascinating.
Also, this is still going. Yeah, that's another thing that I noticed before. Kevin Nash had such a very boring intro. He just slowly walks with no expression. Apollo Crews for contracts was at least a more energetic.
Well, Tia, what if I told you that actually was Kevin Nash's intro IRL?
Well, I can imagine that, but I guess that's his take. The fact that he's like a tank in a sense that he takes things slowly, but he's relentless.
Well, Kevin Nash's stick is basically, at least the Kevin Nash.
Also, Jova, what are you doing?
Well, I don't know, because a bit of a spoiler for you folks, the control scheme for this game is way more complicated than it needs to be.
I can imagine that.
Anyway, as I was saying, Kevin Nash's stick was quite a few things. He could be funny, but apparently he was also one of those backstage politics guys who refused to let others win.
So what? He always demanded in the script that he would win?
Most of the time, yeah.
It's amazing
allegedly.
You gotta be it sounds like you gotta be a really lucky guy for the writers to let you win a lot in this game, it sounds like.
Well, in the industry at large, really.
Well, it depends on how charismatic and how the audience takes up, likes you, when you do it. Sometimes it can last years. There have been wrestlers who had to wrestle for like 10, even more years before they finally gained the reputation that deemed WWE. Okay, and it's time for we to have this guy have a world title since he's been loyal to us and everything. Like Chris Benoit was one of those examples where he was like 18 years before he won the world championship. Then there's been others. Eddie Guerrero, I think, was also. Go ahead.
Well, he did win the WCW world title back in 2000, but by that point he among a bunch of others were so pissed at how WCW was being run that, like, literally the day after he won the title, he and some of his friends just jumped ship to the WWF.
Wow, how'd that end up for them?
Varying degrees of success. Eddie Guerrero was, up till his unfortunately tragic passing in 2005, went on to have a very memorable run in WWE. Chris Benoit did, but he ruined all that by being a murderer.
Yeah, sadly.
Oh dear. And the third one?
Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn, they did okay, but by that point they were on their last legs on their careers, so they didn't do as much.
Okay.
Stop it, Dwibs, he's already dead.
Yes.
I want the match to last more than 2 minutes.
So how is Edge doing as a face, I wonder?
Oh, he's great.
He hasn't been on TV in weeks. He's playing off that assault from Randy Orton. I mean, Randy Orton's most recent thing was him just completely tearing Matt Hardy apart.
It's like, well, I'm pretty sure he's fine because he's been a face before. It's just that personally, I prefer when Edge is a heel because he's so good at it.
I was just wondering, Miko, what's his current gimmick as a face?
Well, right now we don't know because, like Dwibs just said,
his triumph, his own personal story of triumph and overcoming a potentially career-ending injury.
Oh wow! So they actually worked real life into the plot there.
They do. They do a lot of that. Yeah.
There's quite a few wrestling storylines that do that.
Like for example,
I mentioned Edge and Matt Hardy. One of their back in 2005, one of the stories there was also based off real life because Matt Hardy's girlfriend at the time, Lita, she cheated on him with Edge IRL, and Matt was understandably very angry at both Lita and Edge. But so the WWE decided to make that into a storyline. I mean, both to Matt Hardy and Edge's credit, they didn't do the thing where they would, they actually did, work properly, as professionals. Because I mean, it would have been so easy, given the circumstances, for them to just shoot on each other. And basically, shoot means, for those who don't know wrestling terminology, shoot means hurt them IRL. But they didn't do that, so kudos to them for that. And I think at this point, all parties have just moved on. Edge has had a good career, Matt Hardy's had a good career, and Lita's had a good career.
So, Dwibs, what was that you were saying about, back in 2005, the way WWE treated its divas? Well, this intro seems exactly like you would how a 2005 diva opening would be, honestly. I don't see much difference.
That particular individual is no longer in the company.
Ah, okay.
But recently WWE have been making an attempt to make it seem wrestlers be more than just eye candy.
Yeah, there's actually a recent one that I've checked into. There's this woman who's like I forgot her name. Like she recently won, like she now has like 2 championships or WrestleMania or something like that. I forgot what it was. I'll have to look into it. Hold on.
How does women's wrestling hold up compared to men's wrestling anyway?
Oh, they're both being portrayed on equal terms.
Yeah.
So, any particular faces or heels that you watch out for there?
In WWE, at least, there's Becky Lynch, who is the top female in the company right now.
That's it. That's it. That's the one.
Becky Lynch. Yeah, she's from Ireland. And her gimmick is the whole, she's cool and she knows it and everyone loves her for it. Yeah, basically give no fucks kind of personality.
Neat.
There's another one. I mean, the current SmackDown Women's Champion, Becky's the Raw Women's Champion. The current SmackDown Women's Champion is a wrestler named Bayley, who up until this past October was a face that really loved being there and was a fangirl of everything and basically was the happy peppy person.
Anime girl? I mean Genki.
Yeah. Genki girl, yeah. And she even did that briefly as a heel at the end of the year, because basically her shtick for a couple of months was that she was a heel who thinks she's a face.
Huh, interesting.
However, back on SmackDown's first episode on Fox, I think it was, or it might have been the second, I don't know, it might have been the first, Bayley did a thing where she basically on camera, during her entrance to face Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's title, publicly threw that persona completely out the window and basically threw everything that made that was associated with that particular gimmick away, destroying her inflatable flailing arm tube Ben. Now her personality is fuck everybody.
For revenge.
No, she just hates everybody. Except her friend Sasha Banks.
So how about these two wrestlers here?
Summer Rae, like I said, she's no longer in the company. I didn't even see her that much anyway. Asuka is a famous Japanese wrestler whose gimmick now, as a heel, along with her partner Kairi Sane, is spitting mist in her opponents' faces.
And that must be effective, since apparently she's a very effective wrestler, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, she hasn't always done that, but yeah, it's pretty effective. As of this recording, that is, the 21st of February, I should mention.
So she's a heel?
Yeah.
Figures. Only a heel would spit mist in someone's face.
I mean, nowadays WWE doesn't really do the whole they're a foreigner, which means they're bad guys spiel. I mean, they don't do that.
The Rock was a face, right?
Both.
So he had his phases. Sometimes he was a face, other times he was a heel.
I mean, one of a lot of people's more favourite, yet sadly short-lived runs of The Rock was when he was a heel, and basically he was playing into his Hollywood prima donna.
Yeah.
Was that around the time when he was starting up his Hollywood career?
Yeah. Basically, his character in early 2003 was, oh, I'm a big shot Hollywood guy. I don't have time for any of you jabronis.
Oh, is that when he had that weird-looking Jaguar shirt and the sunglasses and everything?
And he was bald, yeah.
I thought he had hair back then.
No, 2003, he was pretty much a skinhead at that point.
Wait, was he bald? Because a few years later, I could have sworn he had to do Tooth Fairy and he had hair for that movie.
Well, Jova, people can grow hair or wear wigs and that.
Oh, I get that. I'm just wondering if his hair was natural or if it was a wig at that time.
Seems like it was.
That was a really bad move on my part.
Yeah.
So the winner is Samurai, and still
I won by doing
the NXT Women's Champion.
Angie.
But the match already ended, mate. But anyway, Samurai supposed to attack Asuka, but Jova forgot the controls.
I was still trying to learn the controls, actually.
I told you the controls.
It's that's the thing.
Didn't exactly make them sound simple, though.
That's the thing, Dwibs. Like, it would be much easier if he was playing one of the PS2 games.
Yeah, I mean, I played the wrestling games back in the PS2 days, and I remember them being a lot more simple than all this complex stuff.
Yeah, they were. Like, they were quite easier to figure out more. Like, I mean, I'm not saying they were like the easiest thing ever, but they were far more intelligible than the recent wrestling games, where there's just so much.
Speaking of interesting control schemes, a bit of a fun fact. You know, the next two WWE games after this game, they changed the control scheme, not once, but both times for both games, apparently.
Yeah, back when Ukes was making the games, at the very least, the controls were fairly consistent.
Ukes made this game.
Oh, this was their last one?
Or Kobe. And the
last game was actually
2K19.
WWE 2K19.
Okay, so Ukes. Oh, and there's Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
No idea why Ukes wanted to, though. I mean, it is a shame, though, because honestly, I think a game should be simple to learn but difficult to master. This just feels difficult to learn.
Well, I think I did all right.
Well, yeah, but you had a lot more time on your hands there.
They've been doing this since I think 2K. So not 2K at that point. WWE 12.
That definitely helps, yeah.
So Shane McMahon's opponent. Oh,
Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Liz, why don't you tell about the legendary moment from WrestleMania 3?
Oh yeah, basically Andre the Giant, who was the heel, had a WWF title match with Hulk Hogan, who was the champion. And the most famous moment of that match was when Hogan was able to lift Andre the Giant up and do a slam on him. Bear in mind, Andre weighed like 500 pounds.
Yeah.
That must have been quite a feat at the time.
It was quite the impressive feat.
Mm. And we're ready to go, folks. Yeah, see, even when I do a clothesline, Andre is just stumbled. He doesn't go down.
No.
I see they take into account the weight system there.
Yeah. Well, for the most part.
For the most part.
It depends.
As for WWE 2K18.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure you could do that to a guy big.
As for the face thing that you were asked, Joe, well, there have been I would say, has Rey Mysterio ever been a heel? Oops, I don't think he has.
No.
Yeah, no. Rey Mysterio.
I think it might have been at some point in WCW, but very, very, very briefly.
Okay. Now, when he joined the WWF, and he's still there to this day.
Well, he did take a few years off, but he's back now.
Sure. But he's always been a heel. Sorry, a heel, a face. Sorry, he's always been a face. It's mostly because he's little. So they usually have him be the underdog in pretty much every storyline that he's in.
Hmm.
Although he did win the world heavyweight champion, the world heavyweight championship at WrestleMania 22.
Yeah, and he has been winning the US title a couple of times since his return.
Cool.
Nice.
He was in a feud with a very talented wrestler named Andrade Cien Almas, or now he's just called Andrade. Unfortunately, the feud kind of stopped because Andrade got suspended for a wellness violation.
Bummer, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's the worst thing. I mean, it's one
I
thing.
have no idea what a wellness violation is.
Stuff related to drugs. That's the worst thing, really. It's one thing when the wrestler gets injured and that's why they have to stop a feud, but it's another thing entirely when the wrestler just flat out fucks up.
Yeah.
Because it's not a good look for him or her.
So, Pedro, Dwibs, do you guys have any particular favorites out there in the world of wrestling?
I don't have a favorite.
My favorite has always been The Undertaker.
Oh yeah, he was a heel, right?
Well, depends on which. He did have his heel phases, but most of the time, not most of the time. I'm sorry, but his most prominent persona has always been the. It's not so much that he's a heel or a face; it's more so the fact that he's just a force of nature who shows up from that valley to destroy whoever opponent dares to face him. Like Randy Orton would challenge him because he wants to join. Because I think what Randy Orton had back in 2005, he was calling himself the Legend Killer, and he was going out of his way to challenge various WWE legends and defeating them on the ring to add to his legend killing count. But he wasn't able to. But he wasn't able to defeat the Undertaker at WrestleMania 21.
So the Undertaker is like, I guess he's like that force of nature who always answers the call when nature is out of balance to right the wrongs and all that jazz.
Except for the early 2000s.
Yeah, his cowboy days, I believe you call them.
Yeah, biker.
Biker days. You showed me those.
It's not. It wasn't cool. It was just a complete. And even they realized it because they ended that storyline by having Kane kill him. His brother, I mean.
He buried him alive.
And then he revived, and then he was reborn from his ashes as his original persona before the biker one.
I gotta wonder, what exactly was the story on how he became the biker in the first place? Because
I don't know. From what I could. Even when he was a biker, he was still called the Undertaker. Although in that context,
really,
that was just a nickname he called himself.
I mean, it sounds like at that point the name wouldn't make sense since more biker, not really Undertaker.
From what I've researched, I can't really find. I mean, he was away for a bit because of an injury or something. But when he next showed up, he was a biker.
My guess is the writer.
It did last a few years, but
did people like it though?
Some did, but it's not as well known as his dead man shtick.
It's more so. My guess is that the writers maybe thought that maybe his dead man shtick was getting stale, so they decided to make him a biker instead. But all it really did,
he is a biker of sorts in real life.
Whose idea was it, I wonder? Was it his idea for the biker stick?
Well, it's impossible to tell who had the idea specifically, Joe. It can be
apparently, the biker taker was at least inspired by, like I said, that he was an avid biker IRL.
Well, yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean he was the one who came up with the idea.
Yeah. He basically, at least according to TV tropes, I'll read the quote in full. The Undertaker long knew he was taking some time off in 2000 to heal up from some injuries and wanted to come back with a new gimmick, as he felt the dead man had run its course because he'd been doing that for 10 years at this point. This ultimately led to Biker Taker. One of the ideas bandied about was that Jake Roberts would quote-unquote save The Undertaker, and he would come back wearing all white and basically be a reverse of his Phenom character, but Taker thought it would have been even worse than the Dead Man guy, and ultimately the biker gimmick was born. Although I'm not sure how true that is, that last bit. But
There's got to be some irony, though, seeing as how I believe he's still now better remembered as the Undertaker than that biker thing. So
that's
much
the
for the
thing.
Undertaker being stale.
Even when he was the biker, he still called himself the Undertaker.
Which doesn't even make any sense. Like,
well, I mean, I guess like how bikers have nicknames.
I guess. So what was his main name then?
His real name?
No. I mean, like, well,
His maiden name.
No. I guess what I mean is like, what was his main wrestler name then? If Undertaker was just a nickname at the time.
Oh, he never had like.
He was always, or at least in the WWF, he was always the Undertaker.
Yeah. They always just refer to him as the Undertaker.
So I guess it was the Undertaker having his happy days. I guess.
Hey.
Another quote from TV Tropes, funnily enough, called on the Your Manners May Vary page, Seinfeld is on funny. A lot of fans hate the biker taker gimmick in hindsight. However, they forget that it came at a time when his character was stale and had no options left. Undertaker was sick of the dead man gimmick, feeling it run its course. He would tell longtime friends, "It sucks, but I'm stuck with it for now." Undertaker was so fed up with the character, he even considered retirement. He wanted to do a more reality-based gimmick, like the ones he'd seen used during the Monday Night Wars. The biker taker gimmick got over initially and was popular. It also led to some of the more memorable feuds of The Undertaker's career. More importantly, it helped rejuvenate the man himself and reignite his passion for wrestling, and later embraced the dead man character when he revived it. So, I mean, so biker taker ultimately did do some good in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's just one of those things that, in hindsight, people don't look on as kindly. But I guess for the time it came out, I guess we do have it to thank for us getting more Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
Although apparently, during the phase of that gimmick, apparently the big evil part where he was just a biker bully.
Now, if you want,
was a more popular bit.
Yeah. To continue answering your question, Jova, well, if you, that's my. Now, if you want to ask me what's my favorite face or what's my favorite heel, well, my favorite heel, I guess I could go with Triple H, because I always was a big Triple H fan back in the day. Because
I especially loved the phase where Triple H became a vampire.
Like
I remember that.
Interesting stuff, huh?
Triple H, that's because Triple H was a very versatile guy who always like when he was a heel, he was usually the cerebral assassin. Like he was the kind of guy who was always trying to get into the mind of his opponent. Not so much in the way that the Undertaker did, more so in the way that, and his favorite weapon was always the sledgehammer. So,
of course, with a stone cold kill. Granite.
Well, that's a different wrestler, but no, like, and he did, and even when he was a face, he was always great to be the Generation X.
And besides Pedro, as I showed you about a month or so ago, the worst promo he did was not when he was the biker Undertaker.
Yeah.
Really? There were what was even worse?
If you have a few minutes after this, Jova, after we're done for the main session, I'll show you.
It's
describe it to me in the audience here.
That's the thing, Jova. I can't.
No, it has to be
Really?
seen. It has to be seen.
Well, okay, but don't leave our audience in the dark here.
Basically, audience, if you want full context, go to YouTube and search up Undertaker lizard boots.
I'm sorry. Is it possible to hallucinate in the ears?
Auditory hallucinations, yes.
I could have sworn I heard you say lizard boots.
Well, okay.
Yes, I did.
Well, no.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
It's oh, okay.
So what? Is he becoming the new Spider-Man villain in it?
No, it was in 1999. Like,
wow, lizard boots.
Again, yeah, I'll show you that when we're done. I mean, but basically, I'll sum it up. The promo was so bad that Chris Jericho had to interrupt it. He was a bad guy.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. That's an interesting sight to imagine. Oh.
Yeah. Okay, I will sum it up non-spoilery. Undertaker tries to tell a story.
He's always struck me as the guy who works best when he doesn't talk too much.
I mean, he has done some good promos on occasion, but it's just that one. But anyway, back to this match. Anyway, I know we've only got 2 minutes 40 left, but I should explain how it works for the audience. Basically, if whoever scores the most amount of falls, like pinfall, submission, whatever, wins the match at the end of the time limit.
And right now, I guess Shady's in advantage.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, me, but yeah.
Given the injuries listed, yeah.
Well, it's not like I'm not injured.
Look at Shane McMahon here. The unfortunate reality is he might not whack Michael.
This is like a David and Goliath tale.
Oh, trust me, Jova. Not really, because it could be even more, Jova. Like on SmackDown, on the original SmackDown vs. Raw from 2004 on the PS2, there's challenges you can make, and one of them is having to defeat Andre the Giant with Rey Mysterio, who's like a third of Andre the Giant's size. So.
Wow.
So basically, and since which means of course that you have to rely on Rey Mysterio's agility and a lot, or do what I did back in the day when I was doing those challenges and just attract Andre to outside the ring. Have the referee start his 10-second count, and then get back in the ring right after he sells not in, and make sure so that Andre might not get back in time, and the referee will say 10, and Andre will lose because of a ring out. There you go.
The smart way, indeed.
Shoulders down. This could be it.
No.
So this is I didn't know this is a hardcore match.
Iron Man match.
Oh, Iron Man. Okay. Again, like I said, I kind of wish the games would try to implement the bull rope match, because I've always wanted to have a bull rope match in these games, but they never implemented it.
Bull rope?
Bull rope matches, Jov, is when the two wrestlers are tied to each other with a bull rope, hence the name, and the only way to win is to touch all four corners of the ring. Which means obviously that in trying to prevent your opponent from touching all four corners of the ring, the match basically becomes a battle of attrition between the two wrestlers, basically, where they keep where they keep pulling each other by the rope.
That sounds like a lot of interesting stuff can occur.
It does, actually. They've done some pretty good, interesting things, like where someone is. Well, hold on. We're about almost done here.
Yeah. So, that was WWE 2K18. Thoughts?
Okay. Like I said, it's a very immersive game. I just wish that the control scheme was, more simplistic and, just more allowing for freedom here and there. It is a shame that from what I've heard from people more experienced with the series than I am, that there are some modes missing too that people preferred would still be there.
All right. So that was it.
And from what I've heard, it doesn't really get much better in the next two games.
Well, I'm not playing those next two games.
Don't worry.
Gee, I wonder why.
Don't worry, Dwibs. For now on, here, Dwibs, tag me in.
Okay. Hey, Pedro, I was gonna tag you. Why did you tag me, slapping my back?
Hot tag.
Ha ha ha. There you go. I'm tagged in, which means now I'll be handling some the wrestling stuff for the channel. Thanks, everybody. Next time I'll be tackling some PS2 related stuff with, and this was back when the WWE games had season modes, okay, campaign modes. So we're gonna watch some good old fashioned WWE programming, except made in game with an original story. So it will be pretty cool. So tune in for SmackDown versus Raw on the PS2, everybody.
See ya.
Sounds like a hoot.
Yep. See ya.